Yo.
What's good, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Martymar Show, y'all. I'm excited to be back doing my platform. It has been a while. There's been a lot of things going on, especially with COVID. So I'm happy to be back. This is episode 3, My Impact. And I have a very special guest. I've known her since college. So it's a good thing we were able to reconnect. This is going to be a dope episode, y'all. So, again, Marty Morris Show, episode 3, My Impact, where I am introducing my guest, do you want to introduce yourself? I'll let you do the honors.
Cool. Yes, my name is Anita Jarman. I am the founder and CEO of the Geely Project Institute. We are a nonprofit, and we basically teach business development to minority entrepreneurs, specifically HBCU students and students that are in high school. So we've been able to touch different age ranges, but we target the minority communities. And we also do a lot of work abroad. So we, before COVID, we traveled to China. We taught our students at Delaware State University and Hampton University business networking and business development in a global arena. So we do a little bit here and there when it comes to entrepreneurship and business leadership, but we also want to emphasize the importance of financial literacy, especially at the high school level.
And y'all, she is a product of the Delaware State University. Shout out to the Hornets. You see, she's repping the gear. I guess I should have worn my hoodie, but definitely shouts out to everything that you're doing. So let's kind of have the conversation about everything that you're doing in the community. So before we get to all that, y'all, in our previous conversation before the episode, we were kind of just connecting with each other, and I found out she's actually a Christian as well. So can
Yes.
we kind of talk about how did you become a Christian?
Uh, Typical born and raised in the church.
Okay.
I'll say it like this: where I understood what the difference between religion and relationship was didn't happen until college. So I, went to private school up until 11th grade, and then I went to public school, and that foundation helped me get through, the different world that public school was, but it ultimately helped me in college and not pretty much go buck wild because the world was open to me now, where I was like in this very uh, strict and sheltered environment. We learned a lot. Like we learned how to praise God at a very early age. We learned scriptures at a very early age. But I gave my life to Christ when I was around 12 or 13 years old. And I remember hearing Jeremiah 29:11. A pastor said it and it just stuck with me for my life. And that's what triggered. And then I rededicated my life in my teenage years, but it wasn't until college that I said, you know what, I need to understand what it really means to be a Christian. So I made this vow to myself when I had my freshman year at Dale State. Literally the first day I got on campus, I said, every day I'm going to read a chapter out of the Bible, no matter if I'm coming from a party, no matter if I'm coming from, it's late and I'm, up working or whatever.
Yeah.
Every day I'm going to read a chapter. And so when I was doing that, I was realizing that I wasn't connecting with God. I
Yeah.
was just checking something off the box.
Mhm.
So that really began my journey in terms of like having a relationship with God as opposed to just going to church, which is something that I had been doing my whole life. So I was used to it. So after I graduated college, I went back to my home church and I was just like, the relationship that I've developed with God, just this isn't being fed. I'm not being fed the way that I've now known how to communicate with God and hear from God. And it was no shade to my home church, but I had to go on that journey for myself. So I literally traveled from to different states. I traveled to Chicago a couple of times to, hear a pastor that I had grown accustomed to his ministry, and I was just like, I really like his ministry. So I did those kind of things to really tap into what that relationship with God was developing into. So it's kind of an interesting question, like when did I do it? Technically, when I was a teenager, I gave my life to Christ, but the journey of becoming a Christian is not just step one is giving your life to Christ, but it's so much more to it because it's something that you're becoming, you know. So that's the long answer to your question.
No, that was good because a lot of people need to understand that being a Christian is not an overnight thing. It even when you feel like you're refined, it's still not enough. Like you said, you have to be consistent and you have to have that relationship piece. So let me ask you this: were your parents like leadership? Were they pastors or anything?
No, so my mom's family came from a very, they were heavy in the Catholic Church. Like one of my great aunts was a nun. My great grandmother, she actually got an invite to visit the Pope. Like that's how heavy she was in the Catholic Church. My dad, not so much. They didn't really have that background in the church, but it was my dad who was led to the church that we grew up in. So him and my mom were like, at an early start, let's put my brother and I in Christian school. So, and I know that was a sacrifice because they were young when they had us. But they knew like this is where we're supposed to be. This is where we need to, you know, raise our children, raise our family.
I'm gonna ask you this question: was it hard to be Christian at Delaware State? And before you answer that, I was not saved before Delaware State. I got saved definitely after. So I'm gonna speak for me before you answer that. I know it knowing what I know now would have definitely been hard, but because our school, let's be real, we did especially in our time, we did a lot of partying. So what are
Hmm.
your thoughts? Was it difficult to be Christian?
Um, I'm gonna say a slow yes before I say a hard no, because those 2 years I had that public school experience, like right before I got to Dell State, was like
Mm,
my eye opener. That's where I learned that there are things of the world that I wasn't exposed to in the church, but that's what the church always talked about,
right.
right? And it wasn't like shaming anybody, it's definitely come as you are, but I saw how important, like imperative, that foundation was.
Mm,
And that's what made it difficult. I'm sorry, that's what made it easy because I was like, I know the good side of this, but now I'm being exposed to a not so good side about life, because you have people that are coming from all different backgrounds and different places in the country or different parts of the world coming in the same place. And you're free. Like I tell my students when I was in the classroom all the time, like the difference between college and high school is that everything is on you.
yeah.
You can choose to go to class, you can choose not to. You could choose, and but that's the whole premise behind life is choices, right? And so when I got to Dell State, I was able to make choices that I balanced based on that Christian foundation, but I also had the opportunity to make choices that weren't one that, aligned with the word of God and learn from it. And that's the beautiful part of it. Like, there were I had my first hangover in college, like, and here I am a Christian. And it's like, okay, you learn from that though, and you learn about the mercy of God. You learn about the grace of God in those situations. So I definitely didn't go in with like this goody two shoe. Oh, I'm not doing that because that's not right. I allowed myself to fail. I allowed myself to slip up. But I had to understand like this is not for me to take advantage of, or take for granted God's grace and mercy. But this is for me to take advantage of it in a way that I wouldn't, if I didn't go to school or if I didn't try different things, I probably wouldn't have grown deeper in my relationship with God because I think that's where God meets us also. When we get saved, we were in a place in our life where we knew we needed change.
Mm, yep.
And so
Yeah.
so you embrace that and you allow God to do a new work in you. And that might take time for you to get rid of old habits and to, go through some more experiences, but understand like God's still with me. Okay, I can do this. I can keep moving forward. I can get out of this. So I definitely had my moments with that while I was at Dell State.
And I appreciate you for sharing that. Because in my show, I try to be real, get people to understand that, like, we may look like everything is joys, and God tell us to have joy, but it's hard at times, right? Because there are
Mhm.
not too many people doing this walk with us. So I appreciate you for sharing that and being real, especially your college experience, because most people
Yes.
are afraid to share that. But hey, people need to hear it. So, um, let's kind of talk about your nonprofit because you have a very interesting, unique nonprofit that I've never really seen or heard of. So, talk a little bit more about your nonprofit.
So I have to talk about how it started, if we want to start somewhere. And it started in college. 2008, I was selected by, I was a mass comm student. And in 2008, the dean at the time, I don't know why I'm trying to remember her name, but the dean at the time had selected like 30 mass comm students and was like, we have an opportunity to go do some journalism for the Olympics in China. So at that time, I'm not ashamed to say this, but it was 2007. This was for 2008, the next semester.
Right.
2007, I was becoming a Zeta. I'll say that.
I got you.
So
Got
I was becoming a Zeta. And I just remember telling myself, this is never going to end. So I'm going to give this one semester. I'm going to give them my life for one semester. Next semester, I'm out of here. I'm not doing this. So when the opportunity for China came in, I was like, sign me up. I don't even care, whatever.
you.
I had thought about studying abroad, but I never thought about China. China was never on my radar.
Right.
So I crossed in December, like the last day of the semester.
Mm.
um, and I was in China by February, and it was 6 months, and I hated. I hated it. I hated the food. The people stared at you. The language I did not understand.
Hold on, hold on. So did you like Chinese food in America? Is different over there? I mean,
Oh,
obviously, right? But like, it tastes way different.
it's no General Tso's. It's no orange chicken. That's some American made stuff. That is not it. Side note to that. We stayed at Beijing Sport University, and in our cafeteria, I kid you not, you know how Chinese characters look like they're
Mhm.
writing.
Yeah, yeah.
So the menu was like that. We can't read that, right? So our translator came in just one day. We were literally like, okay, we're going to order what we know, what we learned in class. We learned how to say chicken, rice, and different fruits and vegetables. So that's what we ate.
Mm.
And our translator came in one day randomly, was like, oh, they have dog on the menu today. And we were like, oh, okay. So yeah, this is different. So yeah, no, it's not the same. It's not the same as the carry out. But when I got to China, I just didn't like it. You know, we were taking 4 hours of Mandarin every morning, reading, writing, speaking, listening classes, and it was just like, oh my God, this is overwhelming. It's just too different for me. And so about midway through our tenure there, we befriended a lot of Africans. I mean, a lot of Africans who were our age. They were studying at different universities, but they were starting businesses.
Mm.
Like they were 21 like us, and they were from different African countries, but they were starting businesses in China because they know like that's a big export country.
Yep.
So that opened my mind. In addition to the church that I grew up in, our pastor was big on infrastructure. He was big on, because we were predominantly Black, and it was probably like 10,000 members. But every year he would host a bazaar, a Christmas bazaar, where everybody who had a business would come and present their businesses. And it's just the church folk that are coming in and buying it. And I'm like, this is infrastructure. So when I come to China and I see it, I see the Africans doing the same thing that they were doing in my church. I was like, we're missing it in America. We are literally getting ourselves into debt, going to school, and then getting into these jobs that don't appreciate us just to get a house and some benefits. Like, this is not it. So that's what really changed my perspective of why I was there. And, you know, it was like maybe 6 years later, I had went to grad school, went back to China again through my grad program. And then I started the Geely Project in 2014. And the very first mission that we had was to do exactly what happened with me: take mass comm students from HBCUs, teach them business networking in China. And it worked. We went back to Dell State. We had our first cohort of students. It was 3 mass comm students from Dell State. It was a perfect execution. Like, we had a great time. The students learned a lot. I still hear from them today about how that impacted their careers. But what changed was me getting back into the community level and understanding that we hosted programs in Prince George's County throughout community centers in PG County one summer. I had 5-year-olds understand entrepreneurship and marketing. And I said, we're missing this gap, this learning gap between high school and college, where financial literacy is not being taught, business economics and business leadership is not being taught, but these are essential functions that are taking you into your next phase. This is a part of your, this needs to be a part of our journey. So now we're in a position where we're teaching these concepts to our audience of minority entrepreneurs or minority scholars, HBCU scholars. That's what the Geely Project is now. So we did revamp our brand, which is healthy for every brand. You know, don't ever be afraid to revamp yourself sometimes, especially when you learn from your audience and what they really need. But we're at a point now where we have done a brand revamp. And now you see Geely Pro everywhere. And Geely Pro is literally purpose receiving opportunities. So we're presenting people who have been through their journey, but they're passionate about what they're doing. And we're taking that content and we're developing a curriculum for our scholars because they're on social media. They're not in a textbook. You know, that's what they're teaching you in school. So we're giving them that content raw deal and we're breaking it down so that they can grasp it in a reel, you know, or online, you know. So that's what the Geely Project is today. And hopefully we'll get back abroad after COVID is cease and desist. But we definitely want to get back abroad because that's where the fun is. So that's what Julie is.
And that's a dope project. Again, I've never heard something like that, especially when it comes to other countries. Because as we know, especially let's be real, as African Americans, sometimes, like you said, we don't expand our horizons. We're so limited thinking, and a part of it is systematic, and also just simply that sometimes we don't take the opportunity to just want to learn. So I think everything that you're doing is awesome. So
Thank you.
besides, you're welcome. Besides you saying, kind of telling me like what made you do it, is there any personal or life experiences that made you want to kind of do something like this?
Aside from China, that was like the most impactful moment of my life. And I'll be candid with you. You know how it is when you take a step back and you look at the different job experiences that you've had, and you're like, I don't want my child or the next generation to have to go through some of these hardships, you know, because there's an intimidation factor when you get into corporate America and when you start a business and you have to pitch a business to people you don't know, right? If you're talking about sponsorships, grants, anything, you know, investment, anything. And so I want to make the process easier for the next generation. I wasn't thinking about being an entrepreneur while I was at Dell State, you know, but it happened and it changed my life. So at the same time, that's a whole new world that I have to understand and learn on my own. I'm just trying to make it easier for the next person. So yes, there were definitely, you know, aside from China, just, you know, changing my life and seeing how infrastructure works, there definitely have been moments in my life, especially working in corporate America and working in the government and working in the classroom, where I'm like, this is not what it's all cracked up to be. But I don't want the next generation to come in and be so unfulfilled that it's like, where do I go now?
I'm glad you said that because I'm gonna be all the way real, man. Black folks be tight when it comes to information. Sometimes they don't want to share, or they feel like once I come up, this is for me. But I appreciate you
Mhm.
saying that because we need to get back to that mindset. Like it ain't just about black period, but definitely for us as in our culture, we gotta be more open minded and realize let's put everybody on. Especially if they're
Yeah,
willing to try and learn, why not? Why we have to lead them in the hood and we move on? So I
yeah,
thank you for sharing that because people need to hear that. Y'all stop being stingy with y'all knowledge. Share y'all knowledge. And don't
yeah,
get me wrong. Hey, sometimes you can charge for your knowledge, and sometimes it's good to just drop a nugget to somebody to help them be successful. So
absolutely.
let's talk about the Chinese culture because I know we talked about the food, but what was it like dealing with the Chinese culture? Because over here, sometimes I'm gonna be real. And it's not to say they're all like that, but I know sometimes it's kind of that thing where, especially minorities, they feel like the Asian culture can be a little bit racist or not really like, especially black people. So, what was your experience with the Chinese culture?
That's a good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. I don't think I've ever been asked that before, but I think the first thing that I'll take you back to 2008. I think the one thing that I learned in that moment was that aside from going to a predominantly Black school, I've never been around the same race like that all the time. There's not a lot of white people. There's not, I mean, you'll see tourists here and there, you'll see people on your university campus here and there. But just to see one race of people all the time was like, this is different because it's not here. We're always conscious of our race, and it goes back to W.E.B. Du Bois when he talked about in the Souls of Black Folk. He talked about how Black people are two wretched souls in one dog body. We have to turn it on and off all the time. The way I'm talking to you now may not be the way I'm talking to a supervisor at a corporation or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Because we're always turning it on. When we're going into different neighborhoods, we're turning it on and off. When we're meeting, it's just it's a constant um it's a constant war that we're having inside of ourselves. But I was in a place where everybody was the same. And it was different. I mean, it's as small and as simple as it sounds, but it was like there's no racism here, amongst it might be classism, it might be, wealth differences and all that, but I didn't see or feel the energy of racism or having to look over my back. As a Black person in China, of course you're thinking, what are they thinking about me? Because that's what we're doing in America. We're always thinking, what are they thinking about me? When I go into a high-end retail store, what are they thinking about me? When I step foot in a boardroom and it's all white people and I'm the only Black person, what are they thinking about me? You know what I'm saying? So it was one of those moments where I literally had to understand that I was there, I was chosen to be there. And the culture, we were there in 2008 where they when they had the Olympics there. I've never seen so much pride for a country in one at one time. I mean, you go to a Wizards game, everybody got on Wizards gear, everybody's yelling and praising for the Wizards. But outside of the military, you really don't get the hype of being American everywhere you go in America.
Right.
In China, it was like everything was like China pride. Like where you saw the red flag everywhere, everybody had on something. It was just like, wow, these people are really embracing the moment and welcoming the world into their country, which was dope. You know, I think my favorite part about their culture though is how deeply rooted they are in tradition. Um,
Yeah.
and I'll give you an example. Um, I ventured out a lot into the city. Beijing is huge. Okay, it's like 10 New York cities in one place. It's overpopulated. It's huge. And a friend of a friend took me to a tea shop, and ironically, the lady who owned the tea shop, she was a currency exchange person. So like you can go in there and get some tea, but she'll also change your currency over. It's like it was
Okay,
like she got a little
little
hustle.
corner story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So her shop, if you came at I think it was like 2 p.m. every day, she used to have tea. She used to set her whole shop up and she used to have tea time. So if you came in during that time, you were forced to kind of pretty much have tea with her, which was dope. And it was like everything was just like tradition. She would tell you about the tea, she would tell you how it's harvested, she would in her very little English. And it was just like you were in this moment. But it's like that's what Chinese culture is. Everywhere you go, you can learn about their culture. If it's the university that you're at or if you're in someone's home, you're getting a piece of that culture. And I really appreciated those little moments of like just learning about how deeply rooted they are in their traditions.
So how was the tea?
Tea was bomb. There's no sugar, there's no honey, there's no milk, it's tea, it's raw tea, and it's like you get an appreciation for it. I definitely have some, like I've stored some away just to keep it alive, keep the memory alive. But it was dope. It was different, but it was dope.
So what's the fashion culture like over there? Because I know sometimes when I
Man,
see them over here, or let me not say them, when I see some of the people from China over here, they dress real like I'm real. They dress like African American. So how was it over
mhm.
there? Was it a blend or?
Oh man, they are some trendsetters, like the females and the males. It wasn't like it was there some trendsetters. I think one of our favorite pastimes, the Dose State students that when we went over there, our favorite pastimes were going to the markets, and this is where we learn how to practice our Mandarin, because we learn numbers and we learn how to negotiate. Like if you most of the things that are made in China don't make it to America or other countries. So they wind up in these markets like randomly. You could walk past it and not even know it's a market, but you can go in there and find Banana Republic or H&M or Forever 21 or Guess or whatever. You could find the brands in there. So I don't know if it's like the stuff that didn't sell or whatever, but it's just stuff. So you could go in there and get it for like dirt cheap. You know what I'm saying? But
We
this is
talking?
where,
How much
huh?
we talking? How much we talking?
I mean, okay,
A rough
I
estimate.
remember I remember going in there with to find like denim. I was on True Religion for just a little while, and them jeans were probably like $20 of our money. something dirt cheap like that. Like,
True religion,
but
G?
the thing about it is you can negotiate it. So they know how to negotiate because they know you're in, well, they know how to get your money because you're an American, right? So where we would pay $200-300 for some jeans, they might start at $100 and we're like, oh, that's a deal. Let me get that whole time. It only costs them $2 to make it. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they have it in abundance. So you learn to hustle, but everybody was on some fashion stuff. Like that was kind of like a run. It's funny you said it because it was like a running joke that we had when we did venture. I was like, yo, look at her, like look what she got on. We used to take pictures of their style. I have a whole lookbook about just stuff I captured when I was on the street. Another part of that, which is funny, when we went the first time for G League, one of my board members, he's a sneakerhead, and
Yeah.
that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But when I was there in 2008, I used to see Chinese people with so many like rare Jordans. And I'm like, where they getting this stuff from? Skip to 2017 when I go with the Geely project for the first time. I got my board member there. I got the three students and one of my homegirls, right? And the first night we get there, some of the DSU students was like, yo, we hungry. It's like 10:30. We just got off a 13-hour flight. I was like, listen, this area of China or this area of Beijing, I'm not really familiar with it, but we can venture out. I'm just telling you, I don't know this area. So we're like walking down alleys, we going to different places. Woo woo. We get to a little hole in the wall restaurant. Get in the joint. I order what food I know in Mandarin. We eat. The girl who owns the restaurant had on some taxi 12s. I happen to have on, yes, and she had like dreadlocks, and she was Chinese. I had on some threes.
Hold
So
on.
I looked at her and I said, and she spoke no English. And I pointed at my shoes, I pointed at hers, and she was like, oh, I said, what you know about these? And she literally was like, it's around the corner. You can get them around the corner. So I said, right, I told her, write down the address. So the next day, we were venturing out, having our business meetings with my network. We were doing our thing. My board member, who's a sneakerhead, he had on there were some really exclusive Nikes. I don't even think they were J's. They were just some like really rare Nikes. Walking down the street randomly, Chinese guy has on the same exact shoes. And he literally was like, I have to go talk to him because there's no way he got those shoes, right? So the dude sees him and they have a whole conversation, not speaking any English. And it's just like,
Yeah.
but that's the power of brands, right? So I told the Chinese guy, I was like, I showed him the address that the young lady gave me the night before. And he said, that's called Shur Chai High. And I was like, okay, let's go there. When I tell you, after all these years of traveling back and forth to China, that was like my fourth trip to China, trying to find these areas where they had those markets just for shoes. The joint was literally around the corner from the hotel we were staying at, walking distance. So we get to Shur Chai High. It was like every Chinese boutique that you can find online. That's where they sold their shoes. They had storefronts.
Mm.
It was like a long strip of just Chinese boutique shoe stores. Every shoe you could think about that ever came out, they had it in stock. So I'm glad I
Oh,
had my
too.
sneakerhead with me. Right, right. I'm glad I had my sneakerhead with me because he validated. He was like, "These are not fake. Like these are legit." And I'm just like, I found my gold mine. So I don't even know how I got on, how I got on that, but they have access to it. The funny part about all of this is, or the sad part is, I went back in 2019, 2018, something like that. And a lot of the markets that we used to go to were shut down. I don't know why, but a lot of them, like I literally was traveling throughout the city, be like, oh yeah, we got to check out this market. It was shut down.
Mm.
So yeah, so I'm glad I got to experience that, but at the same time,
Damn, I'm over here disappointed. Like, dang, did they shut down the sneaker store?
I think those are still open because they
Okay.
were there when I went back the last time. They were definitely there. Like Church High, that street and that area is still there.
So just to confirm too, I was listening to what you were saying, and you wasn't saying Chinese, you were saying Mandarin. So do the Chinese not speak Chinese? Is technically Mandarin?
Yes, it's called Mandarin. It's not called Chinese. Like they don't say I speak Chinese. It's Mandarin. So you have different types of Chinese dialects. You have Cantonese,
Hmm.
and you have Mandarin, and there are plenty other, but Mandarin is the main one that's spoken.
Mm. And that's good to know because, like I said, I might get up behind me like, yeah, y'all speak Chinese, and they like that's like you said. So I'm glad that you informed
Hmm.
me on that. 'Cause definitely didn't know that. So I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you, What are your thoughts about minorities? When it comes to business and minorities, like what's one area you think we need to improve in?
Financial literacy. Everybody, at this point, great ideas are like a dime a dozen. Everybody has a great idea, and there's nothing wrong with that. But seeing a brand come to life is a journey that you have to be willing to take, but you also have to educate yourself about the economics of the industry that you're in. And a lot of that has to do with financial literacy. Um, I don't even know where to start with that because um, just even putting your own money into something is may not be the very first step that you take, but that's logically the first step you take. And so after you've put money into something and it hasn't yielded a return, 6 months down the road, it's like, what did I do wrong? It's because you don't understand how that money is supposed to work for your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
We just think business, I'm about to get rich because I'm about to sell a lot of that product and I'm gonna be good. But I'm learning now that when you do make a profit off of a sale or off of a product, reinvest it into your business. Don't even touch it for yourself, you know? And so those little financial concepts are so important to any type of business that, any business idea. But I think on a general level, it's economics. Um, every brand is a part of an economy, and I'll make it even more relative, especially for scholars. Every major is a part of an economy. So, like, I was a mass comm major, but I wasn't taught the economics of mass comm. I was just taught about the roles that you can play in mass comm. And as a creative and as you know, beautiful as they are, like journalism and podcasting and marketing and analytics and all of that, I wasn't taught the economics of it. And I think that's where we're doing ourselves a disservice, especially with HBCUs. We're not teaching the economics of that major, that industry that major plays into.
Hmm. I like what you said. So let me kind of summarize that. That was really good. It's all, so pretty much it's almost like saying you go into the store to buy something, you're using it, but you don't understand the value of what you're buying. And it's the
Hmm.
same thing with the mindset of almost college. Like we're going there, we're paying for education to get a degree, but we're not understanding, like you said, the value of it. And as a result, like you said, I wasn't an education major, but I'll just use that as an example. I maybe just want to be a teacher, not realizing you can also be a college professor. You can start your own school, but
Hmm.
sometimes they don't go into that. They just say just do this. So I'm glad you
Hmm.
shared that. Based off you doing this nonprofit and all the knowledge that you're giving out, you have any success stories? Like anything that like somebody that you work with, like that was like an amazing story?
Uh, I remember the first time that I pitched the Julie project. Um, and this goes back to the relationship with God. I had I had a grand idea to have this big symposium with all these entrepreneurs, millennial generation entrepreneurs, blah blah blah. Went to DC, went to all these hotels and all that. I said, this is too much for me to just hop out there with. And every year there is a conference in DC. It's the White House HBCU Initiative Conference. I'm paraphrasing it. That's not the exact title, but that's what it is. It's hosted by the White House. So whatever president is sitting, they host it. All the HBCU presidents come and they convene and they have this huge discussion about the state of HBCUs and different initiatives. So this was 2014, 2015, around that time. And this is my first time going to this conference. And I had just got my board together, just signed on the dotted line with the ink still fresh about our constitution ballot. Like Geely had just been born. And I went to the conference because I was like, this is my audience, right? This is who I want to impact. Went to the conference. Man, it was everybody that I wanted to network with. Every HBCU president in one place. It's 100 HBCUs. So I was like, yo, I'm about to sell the crap out of this. But just like any introvert, just like anybody who's new to the process, it's like, but where do I begin? Right. So they had a lunch, and by the lunch time where they were going to host this lunch, I was just like, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. I don't know who to talk to. I'm just here now at this point. I was so excited about this. And I remember walking out the hotel, and I had planned to go away and come back and just kind of get myself together and my thoughts together. And I heard God say, turn around and go back in there. That's all I heard. The first person I see as soon as I walk into this conference that probably had well over 400 or 500 people was President Williams, who was at
Oh,
Dale
okay.
State.
Yep, yep.
First person I see. And so I walked up to him. And you know how it is when you're being led by God to do something, you don't feel anything else. You don't see anybody else. You
Focus.
don't know what overtakes you. You just go.
Hmm.
That's the feeling I had. So I walked up to him. I said, President Williams, my name is Anita Jarman. I'm an alum of Dell State. I wasn't there. I mean, you weren't there when I was there because we had Dr. Sessions. But I said, I know about your work. And honestly, I came here because I wanted to pitch my nonprofit to as many HBCU presidents as I can. And so he said, what year did you go there? So I told him '05 to '09. And I said, I was a mass comm major. I actually, my nonprofit is about study abroad. He said, you were one of the Beijing Seven, weren't you? And I was like, yeah, I was.
Oh
And
wow.
so he was like, I heard about y'all. And I was like, stop playing. So I showed him, I had like a little 1 page summary of the Geely project typed up on this little laminated paper. And he was like, here's my card. Get in touch with my secretary. I want to hear about what you got to do or what you need to do. I left the conference. I was like, I don't need nothing else. Literally, like 2 weeks later, I met with him. Cool dude. Met with him, and I remember driving up there, like practicing what I was going to say. I don't even know what I said when I got in the room with him, but I remember he, in the meeting, he, he had me walk over. He We were in his office. He had me walk over to the window. He was like, "What do you see on this campus?" And I said, well, right here is the ETV building, and that's where we had our mass comm classes. I said, but y'all just built this multi-million dollar
The
tech
opposite.
building right
Yeah.
beside it.
Hmm.
And the mass comm building is old. He was like, yeah, we need to redo this. He said, start your vision here. He said, whatever you need, we got you. He literally signed a check for me for the stipend that we needed to get this thing going. We had our first trip.
Wow. Wow. Shout out to Dr. Williams because I came in
Yes.
seven, so he was there for my second part. I definitely remember Sessions too. So dang, that's dope. But what was funny is, did you really say stop playing?
I probably did, knowing me. Like I mean, because I was not expecting him to know who I was.
Yeah.
He wasn't there when I was there, you know. So he was like, "Oh yeah, I heard about the Beijing Seven. We need to do that again, pretty much." And I'm like, "Oh my God, okay, cool. Like let's go." So that's probably my greatest success story.
And I think that's dope too. And I think that that's another lesson for all of us to understand that don't ever think that the work that you're doing is not being noticed. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
obviously you shouldn't be doing it to try to get noticed, but if you're doing quality work, somebody is noticing what you're doing. And definitely want to say shout out to you for university president, Dr. Williams. For those of you who may not know, our president, Delaware State University, or used to be president. He's an esteemed. He got connects. He got
yeah,
connects. So, and I think now he's doing. Isn't he the president of a HBCU organization or something, right?
yeah. It's not the UNCF. Yeah, it's one of. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank, but it's definitely
So,
one of those external organizations that service HBCUs. Yeah,
yeah, so he got connects. So the fact that he knows what
yeah.
you're doing, so I'm glad I know you because then you got connects. See, it all works together. But
Facts.
so with you being there, let's kind of go back to the Christianity. Let's kind of talk about that. I know before we had our interview, we were talking about music, y'all,
Mhm.
and with me being a Christian, we were kind of talking about. I was asking her like, what are her thoughts? Me being a Christian DJ, I was talking to her about how like sometimes people as Christians get tight about the types of Christian music we have. So I want to ask you, what kind of Christian music do you listen to?
So my favorite, my favorite artist of all time is Stevie Wonder. My favorite, and he definitely talks about his relationship with God and his music. The way he articulates being a human, especially with his disability, is amazing to me, how it's articulated in music, and it's a pure reflection of God. So I connect with Stevie Wonder most. I love Kirk Franklin because he 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 made it cool to be in church and be bopping. He made it cool. And that's something that you can't take away from the experience. When even if you a lot of the older folk in our church look down on Kirk Franklin because it was like it's secular, it's worldly. He's
Mhm.
using Parliament Funkadelic in his music. We don't like that. And I'm just like, but look how he's introducing us to the things that y'all used to bop to, right? He's
Mhm.
he's using it in gospel music. You can't shy away from that.
Right.
Um, but right now, like my favorite album is Sunday Service Choir, Jesus is Born, Sunday Service Choir. And it's the choir that travels with Kanye. Um, and does the little pop-ups everywhere. But that album, that changed my worship game. Like I used to sing in the choir when I was, a teenager, and some of the songs that they did, a lot of the songs that they did were things that we sang in the choir. So I already had this like connection with it because I was like, oh, they killed this straight. Like we used to sing this in the choir. But when you really understand the importance of worship and not just prayer and not just reading scripture, but combining it and having moments of worship with God, it's like music takes it to another level. And the way that they are directed and produced and the way that they sing, it's like you really hear how your voice is an instrument. And it just takes worship to another level. Like I love it. So that's my favorite, right now. I like Maverick City also. They're pretty
Yeah,
cool.
they dope.
I'm a big Anita Wilson fan. I saw her sing live once, and her album, what is it, Worship Love? I think that's what it's called. Love that album. Fred Hammond, grew up on his music too. One of my fourth grade teachers used my fourth grade teacher, not one of, but he used to bump Hammond so hard. So I learned about his music at a very early age. Um, and those are my favorites. And CeCe Winans, of course, like her voice is unmatched. So yeah.
Okay. All right. You got a little mix of the old school and new school. And I like what you said too about Kirk Franklin. Do I agree with everything he do? No, but who agrees with what everybody does? But I will agree with
Right.
you on that. He definitely made gospel music cool. Because I remember growing up when Revolution came out. I remember them playing
Hmm.
that on the worldly stations, and I was like, "Yo, this thing go hard." So I agree with you on that. So
Yep.
before we close out this interview, this has definitely been a dope conversation. Um, if you had to give any last advice for anybody who's maybe trying to start a business or any words of encouragement period that you have, I would like for you to do that. Also kind of share just your social media, how people can get in contact with you if they want to connect with you.
Hmm. Um, learn the economics of the industry that you're getting in. Like become like nerd out. Like become so well versed in, even if it's a t-shirt business, get so knee deep in the fashion industry and how it works that you understand every touch point of what you're about to do. So if you're going to advertise on social media and you pinpoint TikTok and Facebook or TikTok and Instagram as your number one places to sell your product or advertise your product, learn the algorithms behind it. Learn the successful other fashion brands that have utilized it. Learn where the industry is going also, because trends don't last, right? But there are some trends that are going to take the generation of fashion from what we know now to the next place, and you have to be well versed in that. So I mean, I'm not just saying fashion is
Right.
the only industry, any industry. So tech is big, yeah, everybody is on the tech wave, but just learn the economics of the industry that you're getting in. Like it's invaluable. And when you start talking to people about your brand and you start bringing up, oh, my competitor does this, or here's a trend that's going on that I really want to apply to my business, or I'm finding success in doing this because this prominent brand is doing it, you're writing your own ticket, right? You're not just another person with a t-shirt.
Right.
But yeah, so my Instagram is a jillionaire, a underscore JILLIONAIRE. But our nonprofit is Julie Pro. So JILI underscore pro. You can follow both of us. And that's how to get in touch with me. And we definitely have a Julie Pro podcast that's on YouTube. So you can check those episodes out too.
Oh, that's dope, man. That's dope, y'all. Please follow her, y'all. She is doing something awesome, which is teaching financial literacy. Not too many people are out here doing that and then doing it the right way. And she's expanding cultures. That's what's important, right? Not just keeping it among one type of group, but everybody. So I thank you for being a guest on the show. Before we close out, this year, y'all, I'm actually trying to support all the Christian clothing line brands. Today, I have on, this is called Righteous
So
Crown. Is a new brand that is coming out. It is a dope brand. It will be out soon. So when this video comes out, there will be a social media link for that, so you can check out Righteous Crown. Again, my guest Anita, I thank you for having you on. With that being said, God bless y'all. See y'all soon.
thank you for the opportunity.